Welcome to CAN, Caribbean Affiliate News. My name is Siobhan Gubin. This segment of the news is sponsored by TravelSpan Vacations. Here are the stories that we're following today, September 19, 2013. In the news from St. Lucia, less than 48 hours after the authorities there warned of an increased number of people, including children, will now engage in prostitution, Police Commissioner Vernon Francois, the issue remains a major challenge for the St. Lucia police force. Earlier this week, head of the Human Services Department, Antoinette Joseph, said high unemployment, a lack of job opportunities, and rising commodity prices have forced many women into the sex trade. She said that prostitution and child sexual abuse have become significant issues on the island, warning that the situation was getting worse. She says, "We have made several reports to the police so that they are well aware of the situation." But Francois said measures have been put in place to deal with the problem, which may involve human trafficking. However, he said obtaining evidence remains a problem. Francois said there was also the issue of white-collar prostitution, where business people bring persons into the country for purposes of prostitution. He said there have been several cases where individuals come into the country posing as entertainers, dancers, and tourism workers. However, Commissioner Francois said that prostitution is not your everyday crime, but requires monitoring and gathering of information, as there are many technicalities involved in making a case that will stand up in court. Earlier this year, National Security Minister Victor Lacobiniere called a meeting of stakeholders to discuss ways of dealing with an upsurge in commercial sex. In Guyana, a Broward jury on Tuesday convicted a Pembroke Pines man of the murder of his adoptive mother, rejecting a defense claim that he had consensual sex with the victim and then passed out while someone else killed her. Jared Lopes Belmont, 23, was found guilty of second-degree murder after jurors deliberated for 5 hours. He faces a maximum life in prison when he's sentenced on October 10th. The verdict ended a one-week trial that devastated the victim's family. Lopez was Natalie Belmont's first cousin, and she adopted him in 2000 after his father, her uncle, died in their native Guyana. A real estate agent in Weston Belmont, 43, she had 2 biological children, a daughter and son who looked at Lopez as a big brother. Witnesses testified that Belmont treated Lopez no differently than she treated her other children, and prosecutors introduced as evidence birthday cards the 2 exchanged in the months leading up to Belmont's murder. The exchange stood in sharp contrast to the charges made by prosecutors and the explanations proposed by the defense. Prosecutors presented evidence that Lopez and Belmont attended a graduation party for a mutual friend on July 16 of 2011. They arrived home at 2:49 the next morning. At some point after they got home, Lopez attacked Belmont, according to prosecutors. His semen was later found in her body, and the victim's sister testified that the only way it could have gotten there was against Belmont's will. Prosecutors said Lopez was the man seen on a neighbor's surveillance video loading Belmont's body into the trunk of her Lexus and driving off before dawn on July 17, 2011. Belmont's body was found 3 days later in a wooded area less than a mile from their home. Lopez was charged the same day. Family members, including the victim's parents, a biological son and daughter, and the victim's sister, left the courtroom without commenting. Defense lawyer Jose Reyes painted the verdict as a partial victory for his client. Lopez has been charged with first-degree murder, which carries a mandatory life sentence. But the jury found Lopez guilty of second-degree murder, apparently deciding that prosecutors failed to prove the killing of Belmont was premeditated. Under Florida law, a murder can be considered first degree if it is committed while the defendant is in the process of committing another felony, and prosecutors had hoped the jury would connect the murder of Belmont with her alleged rape. But Broward Circuit Judge Matthew Destry did not allow jurors to hear a standard instruction that would have made that connection clear. Reyes said he intends to appeal the verdict. Witnesses are typically not allowed to express their opinions unless they are experts in a recognized field of study. Reyes said Texera was not an expert witness and should not have been allowed to present her opinion to the jury. If Lopez succeeds in his appeal, he cannot be tried for first-degree murder again. 6 Jamaican men are to appear before the Halfway Tree Resident Magistrate Court today on multiple drug-related charges. The men were arrested during a probe by the Transnational Crime and Narcotics Division in collaboration with the U.S. Coast Guard and the British Navy, which began on August 31st when a Jamaican-registered vessel laden with 2,800 pounds of ganja was intercepted in the Eastern Caribbean. 7 men were aboard the vessel at the time, 2 Guyanese and 5 Jamaicans. The boat and the drugs, which has an estimated street value of $14 million, was seized and the men arrested. The Jamaicans were handed over to the investigators while the Guyanese were incarcerated in the U.S. The 6th Jamaican, who was found to be the owner of the vessel, was picked up during follow-up investigations locally on September 11th. More than $2,000 US and other items were also seized in that operation. Charged with possession of ganja, dealing in ganja, exporting ganja, conspiracy to export ganja, and trafficking ganja are Robert Lindsay, otherwise known as Robbie, a chef of Nannyville Gardens, St. Andrew; Stephen Watt, a fisherman of Mountainside, St. Elizabeth; 46-year-old Owen Dunkley, otherwise known as Egghead, a fisherman of Black River, St. Elizabeth; and 56-year-old Anthony Augustus Williams of La Covia, St. Elizabeth. The state funeral of Grenada's longest-serving Governor General, Sir Paul Scoon, at the St. Peter's Church in Goyave is being broadcast live today on www.tcnhd.com. The tribute begins at 12 noon, while the funeral service starts at 1:30 p.m. You are watching Caribbean Affiliate News. Stay tuned.
Since we announced Sign and Drive with zero out of pocket and low monthly payments, cars been flying out of Bronx Honda at a record pace. Whoa! New Accord with zero out of pocket for $249 a month, or new Civics just $199 per month, or save thousands with 0% financing. You never had to leave the Bronx to get the best price on the Honda. Bronx Honda guarantees the lowest price in the Bronx. Bronx Honda, East Tremont Avenue. Visit BronxHonda.com.